The Eldara had watched humanity for centuries. From their vantage point in the dark stretches of space, they observed Earth, sending unmanned probes to study the planet's ecosystems, its creatures, and most importantly, its people. The Eldara were an ancient and highly intelligent species, having mastered the manipulation of biological and psychological processes through their technology. Their scanners could decode the intricacies of alien biology, and their vast data networks allowed them to predict behaviors and anticipate emotional responses. To them, there was no being in the galaxy whose psychology was beyond understanding, until they encountered humanity. The humans had been the perfect subject for their final experiment in intergalactic diplomacy. After years of observation, they decided to make first contact, convinced that their superior technology would allow them to quickly understand the humans. They arrived in their sleek, silver ships, their presence a silent hum in the sky as they descended upon Earth's largest city, New York. The human governments, though initially wary, had been prepared for this moment. A carefully chosen delegation, including Captain Alara Hayes, was assembled to meet the Eldara, trained not just in diplomacy, but in managing delicate situations involving the unknown. Alara stood at the forefront of the human team, her dark eyes focused on the alien vessel as it hovered silently above them. The surface of the ship shimmered, like liquid metal in the sunlight, a visual manifestation of their advanced technology. The sight of it gave her a strange, almost involuntary sense of awe, but she pushed the feeling aside. It wasn't her place to be intimidated. Humanity had survived wars, environmental disasters, and internal strife. They had learned to adapt. This would be no different. Captain Hayes, it's time. The voice of her chief translator, Liam Foster, crackled over her earpiece. The Eldara are ready. Understood, she replied, taking a deep breath before stepping forward. The moment the Eldara descended from their ship, Alara could feel the air shift, heavy with both excitement and tension. The Eldara were humanoid, but their appearance was strikingly alien. Their skin was a pale, almost translucent gray, and their eyes, large and liquid, seemed to pierce through the very fabric of the human psyche. They didn't speak in words, but in a soft melodic tone that vibrated through the air, a form of telepathic communication that Alara had studied. They had no mouths. They didn't need them. The Eldara leader, Lyrian Vale, floated forward, his posture regal and composed. His thoughts were transmitted directly into Alara's mind. We come in peace. We have studied your kind from afar. You are unlike any species we have encountered. Our scanners have detected patterns within your biology, your behavior, and your emotions. We seek understanding. Alara nodded, doing her best to maintain a calm composure. We welcome you, she responded aloud, her voice steady. We are eager to learn from each other. Their first conversation was cordial, filled with formalities and the exchange of information about each species' history. The Eldara were careful with their words, using the telepathic bond to convey subtle meanings that sometimes escaped Alara. It was clear that their technology was advanced, beyond anything humanity had imagined. But it was also clear that there was something missing in their understanding. Once the pleasantries had been exchanged, Lyrian Vale gestured to a device that hovered nearby, a shining orb filled with swirling light. It was their most advanced scanner, capable of mapping the neural and emotional patterns of any species. We will now observe you. Lyrian Vale's voice vibrated in Alara's mind. We will understand your people fully. Alara had read the reports. The Eldara scanners could analyze biological data down to the atomic level and had deciphered complex emotions in the most alien species. It was a tool of immense power, one that could translate even the most intricate behaviors into a readable format. She expected the scan to be brief, perhaps an odd but unremarkable experience. What she didn't expect was the sudden jolt in the air, the way the Eldara's serene demeanor shifted, like a gentle breeze suddenly turning to a sharp gust. The orb floated towards the humans, and as it passed over the team, Alara felt a strange sensation, like being tugged inward. Her emotions suddenly laid bare, pulled apart and analyzed. She fought to maintain control, though it felt like her innermost thoughts were exposed. The scanner hummed, its light shifting, its patterns flickering rapidly as if struggling to grasp something fundamental. Lyrian Vale, usually so calm and composed, furrowed his brow. His telepathic voice came again. Strained. Something is wrong. The data. It does not make sense. Alara blinked, realizing that the scanner was no longer simply processing human biology. It was trying desperately to decode something far more complex. And it was failing. The LDR leader's thoughts brushed against hers, now tinged with confusion. Your emotional data, it is not linear. It does not conform to our models. We cannot make sense of it. Alara remained quiet, the weight of the situation settling upon her. She had suspected something like this could happen, but the realization that their greatest technological achievement was unable to decode something as fundamental as human emotion felt like a jolt to her very core. We are unpredictable, Alara said carefully, her mind working through her next words. You may have studied us, but understanding us requires more than technology. You cannot quantify what it means to be human with a scanner. The LDR's confusion deepened. They had thought they could measure everything, understand everything, but humans, it seemed, were a mystery even to their vast intellect. And this revelation, more than anything, would prove to be the start of a far more complex relationship than either species had anticipated. The atmosphere inside the LDR flagship was heavy with tension. The scanner had failed, and the reactions of the human delegation were even more perplexing than the anomalies in the data. Lyrian Vale paced in the sleek, circular chamber, his long limbs brushing against the walls of the room, his mind focused inward as he sifted through the raw data his scanner had collected. Alara and her team sat across from him, their expressions calm, but there was a palpable sense of uncertainty in the air. Lyrian's telepathic voice broke the silence, a sharp contrast to his usual serenity. This is inconceivable. We have examined countless species. No species has ever eluded our understanding. But humans, your emotional patterns, they do not follow any known logic. Alara remained composed, though she felt the weight of his words. The scanner had attempted to break down their emotions into simple data points. Anger, love, fear, joy. But human emotions were messy, irrational, and often contradictory. They were not neat formulas that could be analyzed and predicted. She understood the frustration in Lyrian's voice. The LDR prided themselves on their ability to understand all forms of life. To be confronted with something they couldn't explain was unsettling. We are unpredictable, Alara said gently, her tone firm but measured. Our emotions don't always make sense. They're not meant to be understood in the same way you might understand a star's movements or the trajectory of a comet. Lyrian's thoughts hummed in response, filled with confusion. But we calculated, using the most advanced scans, we believed we could map your thoughts and behaviors with precision. Yet your actions, they are too erratic, too emotional. Alara looked at him, meeting his intense, glowing eyes. That's because human emotions are not always driven by logic. Sometimes we act out of hope or love or fear, things that cannot be predicted with formulas. Our strength lies in our capacity for change, for adaptation. We can make decisions based on feelings, even when logic tells us not to. A subtle flicker of something resembling awe passed through Lyrian's thoughts, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of frustration. Adaptation, he repeated, as though tasting the word for the first time. But it's chaotic. There is no order. You're right, Alara said, leaning forward slightly. It is chaotic, but it's that chaos that makes us resilient. When things fall apart, humans have a unique ability to pick up the pieces and rebuild, to change when it's necessary, even if we don't know exactly how we're going to do it. Lyrian paused, his mind swirling with thoughts. The more he tried to apply logic, the more he found himself at a loss. It was clear that their scanners, no matter how advanced, were ill-equipped to deal with the depth of human emotional complexity. But something about Alara's words struck him. Resilience. It was a concept he had never truly considered. The LDR's species had always prided themselves on being unchanging, their psychological makeup stable and predictable. They did not need to adapt. They were eternal in their knowledge and their control. But humans could change, could endure, could rebuild even when the world around them crumbled. As Lyrian drifted into deep thought, Alara turned her attention to the rest of her team. They had been silent through most of the exchange, but she could feel their uncertainty hanging in the air. The Eldiara may have failed to comprehend the essence of humanity, but Alara knew there was more to their species than could ever be captured by a scanner. "We're not perfect," Alara added, looking around at her team. "We make mistakes. We're driven by emotions that can't always be controlled. But it's our ability to grow and learn from those mistakes that defines us. You can't understand us fully through technology. You'll have to see it for yourselves." The room was quiet, save for the hum of the Eldiara's technology. Lyrian's thoughts drifted again, more reflective now. He had sought to understand the humans through logic and data, but it was clear that understanding them would require something more, a willingness to embrace the complexity, the chaos, and the unpredictability that made humanity unique. As the silence stretched on, Alara knew that this was just the beginning. The Eldiara had much to learn about humanity, and the road ahead would be long and uncertain. But she felt a flicker of hope, a feeling she hadn't expected to find in a room full of advanced alien intellects. Perhaps the Eldiara could learn after all, if they were willing to embrace the one thing they had never considered, the messy, beautiful unpredictability of being human. The tension inside the Eldiara flagship had escalated. After several failed attempts to comprehend human emotions through their advanced scanners, the Eldiara had become increasingly agitated. What they had thought would be a simple matter, understanding humanity through biological and psychological data, had turned into a complex enigma. The scanner that had once read the emotional patterns of countless alien species now sputtered and flickered, unable to process the deep, intricate layers of human sentiment. Alara sat across from Lyrian Vale in the sleek, round meeting chamber, her eyes calm, though her thoughts were heavy. The Eldiara leader's usual composure had been replaced with a subtle unease. He had never encountered a species whose psychology couldn't be distilled into data. In his mind, the failure was an anomaly, a challenge he hadn't anticipated. "You still don't understand," Alara said softly, breaking the silence. "Human emotions can't be quantified. We don't always act based on logic. Sometimes we follow our hearts, our instincts. You can't predict that with your scanners." Lyrian Vale's voice echoed in her mind, his thoughts layered with frustration. "It is illogical. Emotions should be predictable, just like any other biological process. But your behavior defies all patterns. I cannot make sense of this chaos." Alara leaned back in her chair, her gaze unwavering. She had spent her career studying diplomacy and human psychology, but she realized now that words alone wouldn't be enough. The Eldiara needed to see it, experience it firsthand. "Perhaps you need to witness it," Alara suggested. "A scanner can't capture the depth of human experience. You need to understand how we feel, not just what we feel. It's about more than the data. It's about empathy." Lyrian's large, liquid eyes narrowed as he processed her words. "Empathy?" His voice was tinged with skepticism. "You ask me to feel what? To experience your chaos firsthand?" Alara nodded. "Exactly. Feel what we feel. If you want to understand humanity, you need to experience the heart of it. And that means seeing us at our best and worst. Our resilience, our ability to adapt, and our capacity to love, even when it's irrational." The Eldiara were silent for a long moment, the quiet hum of their advanced technology the only sound in the room. Lyrian's thoughts buzzed with uncertainty. The Eldiara had never needed empathy to understand other species. Their advanced scanners had always been enough. But humans were different, unpredictable as they had said. The idea of empathizing with another species was foreign to him. But Alara's words lingered, and finally he spoke. "We will attempt it, but I do not understand how your emotions can be a strength. How can unpredictability and chaos lead to survival?" Alara smiled, but it was tinged with a hint of sadness. "Humanity has survived because of our unpredictability. When faced with challenges, we adapt, we innovate, we grow. When we're knocked down, we get back up. We may not always be logical, but we're resilient. It's in our blood." Lyrian considered her words, his gaze shifting toward the window, where the earth loomed large below. He had seen human history from the outside: wars, disasters, triumphs, and failures. But the full weight of what Alara was saying didn't truly hit him until now. Humanity didn't just survive in chaos. It thrived because of it. "We will begin again," Lyrian said, his tone softer now, though still filled with doubt. "But I cannot promise understanding. Perhaps the key to understanding humanity lies not in perfect data, but in imperfect experience." Alara's heart stirred. It wasn't the resolution she had hoped for, but it was a start. The Eldiara were beginning to see what she had known all along, that humanity's greatest strength lay not in perfect logic or predictability, but in their boundless ability to adapt and endure. As the meeting ended, Alara stood, her resolve stronger than before. The journey to understanding would be long, and the Eldiara had much to learn. But they had taken the first step. Perhaps, in time, they would come to see that it was the messiness of humanity, the chaos, the emotion, the unpredictable nature of it all, that made them not just unique but unstoppable. The following days aboard the Eldiara flagship were filled with tense anticipation. The Eldiara, despite their advanced technology and vast knowledge, were struggling to comprehend what made humanity so different, so difficult to understand. Lyrian Vale had agreed to Alara's suggestion, but it was clear that his species had never experienced anything like this before. They had always relied on cold, calculated logic to solve problems and understand the universe. Now they had to confront a new way of thinking, one that involved emotion, empathy, and unpredictability. Alara's team had been invited to participate in an experiment, an attempt to observe humanity in real-world situations, without relying on the scanners. The Eldiara had arranged a series of tests designed to push human emotional and psychological limits. They would observe how humans responded to stressful situations, conflicts, and moments of joy, hoping to find patterns that their technology had missed. As they prepared for the first test, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of nervousness. The experiment was designed to simulate high-stress situations, a trial by fire to see how the human spirit would respond. The humans aboard the flagship had been asked to participate, though Alara knew they had little idea what they were getting into. The simulation began in an artificial environment designed to mimic the chaos of a battlefield. As soon as the simulation began, Alara's team was thrust into a situation that felt real. Explosions erupted around them, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and their ears were filled with the sounds of chaos. The objective was simple: survive and find a way to work together to escape. Lyrian and the Eldiara observed from the control room, their eyes trained on the humans' reactions. They expected the humans to fall into panic, to let the chaos overwhelm them. But what they saw was different. Alara's team moved as one. They didn't hesitate. They communicated quickly, intuitively, and without the need for technology. They didn't wait for orders. They took initiative, using what little they had to survive. When one of the team members was injured, another immediately jumped to help, disregarding the immediate danger. Fear, yes, but it was controlled, a driving force, not a paralyzing one. Lyrian's thoughts were filled with a new kind of awe. He watched as Alara herself, in the midst of the chaos, kept her team calm and focused, making split-second decisions that led them towards safety. They didn't rely on scanners or external guidance. They relied on each other, on the bonds they had forged as humans, to find a way out. It was something the Eldiara had never seen before. It was messy, unpredictable, and yet, it worked. When the simulation ended, and the artificial battlefield faded away, the Eldiara scientists were stunned into silence. Lyrian Vale stood at the control room window, his gaze fixed on Alara and her team as they emerged from the simulation, battered but unharmed. The data from the simulation was chaotic, but there was a pattern within it that the scanners hadn't been able to detect. "We have seen resilience." Lyrian's voice was a whisper, almost reverent. "We have seen how you endure, even when the odds are impossible. How you fight not just for survival, but for each other." Alara stood among her team, breathing heavily, her face streaked with dirt and sweat. "That's what it means to be human," she said quietly. "We adapt, we change, and we fight together. Even when we don't know how, Lyrian's thoughts were full of wonder. We have never encountered a species that can do this. Your ability to survive, to push forward despite the odds. It is unlike anything we have ever seen. It is not chaos. It is strength. Alara smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression. It's not just about strength. It's about hope and the will to keep going. We don't give up, no matter how difficult the journey. That's what makes us human. For the first time, Lyrian understood. The LDR's technology, their cold analysis, could never fully grasp what made humans so unique. But in this moment, watching them rise from the ashes of a simulated battle, he saw it. Humanity's true strength wasn't in the perfection of their logic or the predictability of their actions. It was in their unyielding capacity to adapt, to fight, and to grow. As the LDR continued their observations, they knew that understanding humanity would be an ongoing process. But for the first time, they saw a glimpse of what made humans more than just a species. They saw them as something more, resilient, unpredictable, and ultimately unstoppable. And in that moment, Lyrian Vale realized that the greatest lesson humanity had to offer was not in data, but in experience. Perhaps, he thought, this is how we begin to understand each other.